Solving quadratic equations by factoring. So we spent the last two videos factoring. Now we know why in order to solve those quadratics. First, some vocabulary. The zeros are the x values that make the equation equal to 0. We call it the solution to the equation. We call it the roots. And it's when the y is equal to 0. Basically, it's our x-intercepts. When solving quadratic equations, you'll typically have two answers. Now here's the steps. First, we have to set the equation equal to 0. That means it needs to be in standard form, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, and we replace that y with 0. Then we factor, and we set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. So here we have x squared plus 4x equals 21. Our step 1 is to put it in standard form and set it equal to 0. That means I need to move the 21 to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 21 from both sides. On the right-hand side is equal to 0, and on the left-hand side, then I need to factor. I build my house. Because the end is negative, I know that I'm going to have one positive and one negative, and I ask myself, what factors of 21 will subtract to 4? Well, 7 times 3 is equal to 21, and 7 minus 3 is equal to 4. So I have x plus 7 and x minus 3. I know the 7 is positive because the 4 in the middle term is also positive. Then it's still equal to 0. Our next step is to break this into two equations. We have x plus 7 is equal to 0, and then we have x minus 3 is equal to 0. On the right-hand side, we'll add 3 to both sides, giving us x is equal to 3. And on the left-hand side, we subtract 7, which gives us x is equal to negative 7. Our answer has an or because it's one or the other, and we're finished. The next one is written in function notation, f of x equals. So instead of writing f of x, we need to set this equal to 0. It's simple. You just make the y value, which is f of x, 0, equals 2x squared minus 16x plus 32. So if you have a y or an f of x, you just make that 0. So we did step number 1. Step number 2 is to factor this. I can see that there's a GCF, so I'm going to take out the 2 to begin with. Then I can factor the inside. Because the end is positive but the middle is negative, I know I need a negative times a negative. And then I ask myself, what two things multiply to 16 but add up to negative 8? Well, 4 times 4 is equal to 16, and negative 4 minus 4 is equal to negative 8. So I have x minus 4 and x minus 4. Now we set each individual factor equal to 0. 0 is equal to 2. Well, that doesn't work, so it goes away. Next, x minus 4 is equal to 0, and again, x minus 4 is equal to 0. Add 4 to both sides. X is equal to 4, and again, x is equal to 4. Because we have the same answer twice, we only have to write it once. We're going to write the answer as x is equal to 4. Later on, we would say that this has multiplicity of 2, meaning you have x equals 4 twice. That's a multiplicity, but we'll cover that in a later chapter. Again, when you set this equal to 0, I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. That gives me 2x squared minus 4x is equal to 0. Well, I can see that I have a common factor of 2x, so I divide everything by 2x. My GCF always goes in front, and whatever's left over goes inside. X minus 2 is equal to 0. Now you set each factor equal to 0. That means I have 2x is equal to 0, and I have x minus 2 is equal to 0. In order to solve for x, I divide by 2. X is equal to 0, and in order to solve for x, I add 2. X is equal to 2. Put an or and box our answer. Alright, for this problem, I hope you see that it's a difference of two squares. I have a perfect square in the front, a minus, and then a perfect square in the end. So we simply factor 6x plus 3 and 6x minus 3. Now, you could have probably taken a GCF out of the front, but it's easier when you have a difference of two squares to just simply factor it like this. It's still equal to 0, and we set each factor equal to 0. 6x plus 3 is equal to 0, and 6x minus 3 is equal to 0. Subtract the 3's and add the 3's. 6x is equal to negative 3, and 6x is equal to positive 3. Divide both sides by 6, and you get x is equal to 3 over 6, which reduces to negative 1/2, and x is equal to positive 3 over 6, which reduces to 1/2. So that gives you x is equal to 1/2 or negative 1/2. Now, sometimes people like to use plus minus. Don't do that. There's a lot of reasons I'm not going to get into, but avoid using the plus minus symbol because you're more likely to make mistakes in the future. Now, is there another way of doing this? Yes, we could have solved this by taking the square root, but right now we're solving by factoring. As always, we need to set this equal to 0, so I need to move the 5x to the left, subtract 5x, and then I need to move the 20 to the left, so I'm going to subtract 20. Cancels, cancels, it equals 0. That gives me 2x squared. 8x take away 5x is 3x positive, and then the negative 20 moved to the left. Now I look for GCF. There's not one, so I simply need to build my houses. I have a negative at the end, so I'm going to have a plus and a minus. Now this is where we did the happy face method in last video. We draw our happy face. He sticks out the tongue. Now the factors of 2 are 1 and 2, so that's really easy. I have a 2x and a 1x. The factors of 20 are 4 and 5 are the most similar, so I'm going to try the 4 and 5 first. Since 3 is a small number, I want the 5, my bigger number, to multiply times a smaller, and same thing there. And now we check it really fast. 5x and 2x times negative 4 is negative 8x, which gives me negative 3x. Well, I needed a positive 3x. I ended up with a negative 3x. So that means you go in and you simply change your signs. The positive is going to become a negative, and the negative is going to become a positive. Double check. That gives me a negative 5, positive 8, and a positive 3x. These are my two factors. Now, I set each factor equal to 0. 2x minus 5 is equal to 0, and x plus 4 equals 0. Add the 5 to the other side. 2x is equal to 5, divide by 2, and x is equal to 5/2. On the right, we just subtract the 4 to the other side, and that gives me x is equal to negative 4. We have an or in the middle, and box our answer. All right, we need to set equal to 0, so we subtract x squared from both sides. Cancels out, that is equal to 0, and we have x cubed minus x squared minus 6x equals 0. Now, I see a GCF all the way down. I have an x going all the way down, so I'm going to take out my GCF of x. That gives me x parenthesis x squared minus x minus 6 is equal to 0. Now I factor. Remember that GCF has to go along with you everywhere you go. Because the end is negative, I know that I have a plus and a minus. The factors of 6 are 2 times 3. They should subtract to 1, and they do. So because the middle number is negative, the bigger number becomes negative with an x and an x. Now I separate this into 3 equations. X equals 0 is my first factor. X plus 2 equals 0 is my second factor. And x minus 3 equals 0 is my third factor. Remember to take that GCF with you wherever you go. X equals 0 is already solved. Subtract 2 from both sides. You get x is equal to negative 2. And add 3 to both sides. And you get x is equal to positive 3. So your 3 answers are x equals negative 2, x equals 0, and x equals 3. In order to set it to 0, we subtract 2 to both sides. That gives us 12x squared plus 5x minus 2. We look for a GCF. There is no GCF, so we just need a factor. The end is negative, so I know I need to have a plus and a minus. The factors of 2 are 1 and 2, So I simply put the 2 and the 1. Now the factors of 12, we have options. We can use 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Normally you're going to go with the middle numbers, so we're going to use 3 and 4. I'm going to put 3x and 4x, and we'll see what happens. We draw our happy face and check the numbers. 2 times 4 is 8x. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3x. 8 take away 3 is a positive 5x. And positive 5x was our middle term, so we're good. Now that we have our factors, we can go ahead and set them equal to 0. 3x plus 2 is equal to 0, and 4x minus 1 is equal to 0. Subtract the 2 from both sides. 3x is equal to negative 2. Divide by 3. X is equal to negative 2/3. On the right, we have add 1 to both sides. 4x is equal to 1. Divide by 4. X is equal to 1/4. Really fast. Solving by taking the square root. If you have something like this where you have a perfect square on both sides, all you have to do is take the square root of both sides. That's going to give you square and square root cancel out. X plus 4 is equal to, the square root of 16 is plus or minus 4. That means you need to break this into two separate equations. You get x plus 4 is equal to positive 4, and you get x plus 4 is equal to a negative 4. The plus minus symbol means you break it into 2. On all the way down, we're going to subtract 4 to the other side in order to cancel that out. And that gives me x is equal to 4 take away 4 is 0. And if I subtract 4 from both sides, I get x is equal to negative 8. So those are my two answers. One more time, just for clarity. I have a perfect square on both sides. I can square root both sides. Cancels. That gives you x plus 7 is equal to plus or minus 7. Now I need to break it into two equations. You have x plus 7 is equal to the positive 7, and then x plus 7 is equal to the negative 7. Subtract the 7 to both sides, subtract the 7 to both sides. Cancels, cancels. You get x is equal to 7 take away 7 is 0. Negative 7 take away negative 7 is negative 14.